let's say you entered IFR conditions on accident. You're just kind of cruising along. Visibility kept going down. You're like squinting, like, nah, I'm good. Let me just clean my glasses real quick. Nah, I'm good. And next thing you know, you're like, can't see a damn thing. I ain't good. I ain't good at all. What are you going to do?
I would rely on my instruments and try my best to get out of IMC conditions.
All right. How?
I'd turn around and just get out.
Right. So if you were to turn around, you got a rough estimate on about how long it would take you to exit the clouds?
Mm-hmm.
No, that was a question. Do you have a rough estimate?
However many minutes it took me to go in to.
So from initial entry to exit could be about 3 to 5 minutes, right? Because you're going to be turning at a standard rate. So what's a standard rate turn? How long is it going to take me to make 180 degrees at a standard rate turn?
It was like 1 minute.
Yep.
Or 3 minutes.
So it's 1 minute. It's 1 minute, right?
1 minute.
Let's say there was a little bit of a headwind that moved this cloud across me as I was moving into it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to take me about 30 seconds of a little bit of a 1 minute to or 30 seconds to about a minute of like an oh shit factor. Let's be honest. Private pilot entering the clouds inadvertently. It's like, oh shit. What are we going to do? Oh yeah. All right. My instructor. What did my instructor say? Okay. 180 degree turn, standard rate, maintain coordination. Okay. Let's do that. And you make your 180 degree turn. It's going to take you about a minute to turn around. Then it could take you another minute to 2 to get out of the clouds. Let's say for some reason that didn't get you out of the clouds. What are you going to do next?
I would contact the nearest air traffic control facility and ask them to vector me to the nearest VFR airport.
All right. Make sure you include that I am a private pilot, or I am a non-IFR rated private pilot. All right. Because if you're just like, hey, ATC, I'm in IFR. Can you give me vectors to the nearest airport? They're going to go, all right, advise when ready to copy your clearance. You got a passenger that's freaking out. They are over here just like they can't get their breath under control. They're hyperventilating. What do you think you could do to try and help them?
I'd give them a paper bag to breathe in or have them talk aloud the checklists.
Awesome. I generally don't like the paper bag option because let's say you're up at 7,000 feet. Is there a whole lot of pressure and whatnot for oxygen up there? No. Now you just gave them a paper bag. They went from hyperventilating to hyper passed out. Okay, they went to hypoxia real quick. They went from I'm breathing too much to I'm not breathing at all. I know on the ground, sure, right? I don't like it because the last thing you need to do is go, shit, are they dead? They got real quiet real quick. But I did like read the checklists out loud. All right, sing a song, right? The wheels on the bus go round and round. That's a really good one because it's got a lot of long round and round. The wipers, it makes them breathe kind of evenly. All right. Left turning tendencies. Do you remember what those are?
Yes. Torque, gyroscopic precession, asymmetrical propeller loading, also known as P factor.
Okay.
And spiraling slipstream. Awesome.
Well, let's talk about torque. What is torque?
So again, earlier from one of the two principles, Newton's the third law of motion. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if the propeller, from my view, as if I'm flying the airplane, is turning to the right, then it'll produce an equal and opposite reaction, which will turn the airplane towards the left. So it'll just go to the left.
Awesome. Now you said there was what did you call it? Asymmetrical propeller loading? Like technically that's correct, but like everybody calls it P factor. What is P factor?
Key factor is when the downward moving blade of the propeller is taking a bigger bite of air than the upward moving propeller.
Okay. So since it's taking a bigger bite of air, it's got a bigger angle of
Angle of attack. Yep.
awesome. Um, now what is gyroscopic precession? You said gyroscopic precession is one of the left turning tendencies.
Yes. It is basically when an applied force is when there's an applied force, the resultant force that's sort of felt is 90 degrees to the right. So when you put in full power, you're trying to go straight, right? So then that force is going to be put at the top of the propeller, but it'll be felt 90 degrees to the right, and therefore, the airplane's just gonna turn to the left.
So no, you got your directions a little different. It's more
Yep.
about your pitching moment.
Okay.
All right. So and make sure you include, so from the beginning, when a spinning object with mass has a torque applied to it, the actual torque is felt 90 degrees in the direction of rotation. Okay. So
Okay.
if I've got a blade spinning to the left as it's in front of me and I pitch up, that
Mhm.
is me pulling on the top of the propeller or me pushing on the bottom of the propeller. 90
Okay.
degrees in the direction of rotation, pushing on the right side, pulling on the left side. That's why I go left. So if I pitch down, is it still a left turning tendency?
No.
So we know that like a propeller, obviously it's not just a flat blade. It's got this little bit of twist to it. What I really
Yeah.
mean is why is it more twisted here than it is up here?
Mm. Actually, I'm not sure about that.
So, but you've recognized it, right? You've
Yeah.
seen it on your propeller. Where's the fastest point on a propeller blade?
On the tips.
Right? So if I'm moving an airplane at, I don't know, 60 knots, I have to have the nose up pretty high, right? To generate enough lift.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm doing 110, I can kind of flatten out the nose, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with your propeller. So we've got our little propeller down here, we'll call it, I don't know. Yeah. Down here at the wing root is moving really, or the propeller root is moving really slow. Up
Yeah.
here, it's moving really fast. It's just like when the airplane's moving really slow, we've got a real steep angle of attack.
Mm-hmm.
And when the airplane's moving fast, we have a shallower angle of attack because we generate more lift or more thrust based on our speed, right?
Oh, okay.
So the reason the propeller blade is twisted is so that we don't get a kind of bending moment on the propeller blade. It's so that we can have an even force of pressure along the entire blade. If there was like a 737 taking off in front of you, that's going to generate some wingtip vortices. What would we call those wingtip vortices?
Wake turbulence.
All right. What is wake turbulence?
Wake turbulence is basically, I explained earlier, when the high pressure air goes up over the wing or over the wingtips, it creates vortices, and that's basically wake turbulence. It's produced by another aircraft producing lift.
Okay. What aircraft is most likely to produce the most wake turbulence?
An aircraft that's heavy, clean, and slow.
Heavy, clean, and slow. Have you ever heard of that Challenger that blew through the wake turbulence of an A380 at cruise?
No, but I heard it actually in one of your videos. You were explaining it to the student,
Yeah, it's
and that's how I know.
it's a big deal. All right. So how do I avoid wake turbulence?
Um, so you just stay out of. So for example, if back to the example you gave, if a 737 is taken off in front of me, then I would rotate earlier than where it rotated, which is basically like 1,200 feet or so of roll. And if we're landing, then I'd land past where the 737 landed.
Awesome. Now, is it only airplanes that generate wake turbulence?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um,
So how do we get wake turbulence? But with the generation of lift, right?
yeah,
So can a helicopter generate lift?
yeah,
Can a helicopter generate wake turbulence?
yeah.
Your aircraft has some funny looking wingtips in regards to like, most other general aviation aircraft. We look at this little Piper 140, its wings are
Yeah.
generally straight. Why are the wingtips pointed up on your aircraft?
That's to reduce the wingtip vortices. So yeah, it's to reduce the wingtip vortices.
That's it. That's the end of the question. That's the end of the response. Um, Commercial level, we might dig a little deeper and go, oh, what do wingtip vortices do? And then you'd say, oh, well, wingtip vortices, they wrap around the wing, they hit the top of it, cause a little bit of drag. So when we have tilted up wingtips or winglets like that, it helps push those vortices farther away from the wing, not letting them hit the top of the wing as much, causing more drag. Um, but that's a little commercial level of aerodynamics, right?
Yeah,
So
I was gonna explain it, then I was like, wait, it's a
yeah,
check ride.
never miss an opportunity to shut up. All right. Describe to me the two different principles in regards to the generation of lift.
So the first thing we have is Bernoulli's principle, and the second is Newton's third law of motion.
Okay, so what are those?
Okay, Bernoulli's principle states. No, I know what they are. I'm just laughing. Bernoulli's principle states that when air speeds up, it creates lower pressure, and Newton's third law of motion states that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
So Bernoulli's law isn't necessarily stating that when air speeds up, the pressure reduces, right?
Mhm.
Like when you turn your fan on, the air is being accelerated, right? Is the
Yeah.
pressure dropping in your room?
No.
No. So it's when air meets a restriction, or technically, it's when a fluid meets a restriction. The velocity of
Gotcha.
that fluid will increase while its pressure drops. What's the restriction that we're referring to in this when we're talking about airplanes? It's the wing. The wing is the restriction,
Oh, gotcha.
right?
Okay.
What's VNO?
So VNO is our normal operating speed
Okay. When am I allowed to exceed VNO?
in smooth air.
Okay. Well, what's the speed? Like, just what's the number
100
associated?
118 knots.
Awesome. What's VA and what does it provide for me?
VA is your maneuvering speed, so 106 knots for the DA-20, and it provides. So if you're at maneuvering speed, you can make one full control deflection, and and you'll be fine. It's not going to be structurally damaged.
It
The
won't
airplane.
it won't damage the aircraft, right? So which
Yeah,
side of that speed is that? If I'm at 108, am I safe, or is it 104 I'm safe?
104. You're
Awesome.
safe.
Awesome. If we're doing a short field takeoff, there's a 50-foot obstacle at the end of the runway. Make it a tree, make it a building, I don't care. What airspeed am I going to climb at immediately after takeoff?
VX, which is 58 knots.
Okay. Um, Now I'm gonna go dig into your POH because I know I wrote these down. So I'm seeing that not being VX, right? So the correct number is 58, but VX is marketed is different and depending on its configuration. So we've got a cruise configuration and a takeoff configuration for VX, right? So what are those
Right.
two different speeds?
For VX, I was only taught for takeoff. It's 58. Uh, for cruise, I believe it's 64. Not sure. I'm not sure.
All right, let's go find it in the POH because I want us all to look it up together. And when I am, kind of teaching, I try to have the book right there in front of me because, like, sure, I'm an instructor, I know where to find the information. I've been doing this for a while or what have you. You don't though.
Yeah, I don't have a book. I've got one on the iPad. I'll
Yeah.
actually. I'll just pull it up.
Yeah. So it's in airspeeds for normal flight 4.2, page 105. Is the chart that I'm referencing?
Okay.
You see that chart?
Yeah, I see it. Yep.
Yep. And I know the 1 knot
Okay.
might not be the end of the world, but it's also not correct. And the last thing you really want to do is fail a check ride over something this simple, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely take some time. You probably got a wonderful study guide and your instructor's probably doing a pretty good job, but always know where the reference material is, know where the source material is, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I fell victim to this same thing, like trusting my instructor, just listen to my instructor. I'm not gonna lie, I made it all the way through private pilot and never even looked at 91.205. Okay.
Crazy.
I never even looked at it. Okay. So I'm not just going to fault you being like, oh, bad student, you need to do these things. No, I did the exact same thing. But what I also know is that like when I had my private pilot's license, there's no way in hell I should have ever been flying anything other than what the school offered me. But that's not what my private pilot's license gives me. Battery gets recharged by the generator, right? What happens if the generator dies?
Then we only have about 15 minutes of battery left, and that's it.
All right. What happens after the battery dies?
Then all of the avionics shut down. The lights go out. Yeah, and the flaps don't work.
Okay. So the engine's going to stay running.
Yes.
All right. Why? Like, how does the engine stay running? Like, if the battery dies in my car, it's not going to stay running.
Yeah, no. The engine is separate from the electrical system. The engine is powered by Magnetos.
Oh, that's a fancy word. Isn't that an X-Men? No, I'm kidding. But how do Magnetos work?
So a magneto is basically like a magnet that spins and it creates current, and it goes through the spark plug because ours is an injected engine, and so it goes through the spark plugs, and that's how it runs.
Okay. Let's say one of the Magnetos dies. What's going to happen?
Then only one of the spark plugs would work in each cylinder.
Oh, so we've got 2 spark plugs per cylinders. And they
Yep.
share, right? Awesome redundancy, right? Things got an electrical system. Can you kind of talk to me about this aircraft's electrical system?
I can try to.
All right.
The electrical system, it's all um, dang, okay. The electrical system.
Well,
I believe
let's start at the source. Where does this electrical system get power? Like, what's
the
its
battery.
source? All right. How many volts is that battery?
I'm not sure.
All right. How high does your voltmeter go on your instruments?
I think it was like 24 or 36, or something like that.
So I'm looking at your POH, and again, some of these are might be a little different. But again, I'm looking at the POH.
I'll be honest. I haven't explored the electrical system of the DA20
Okay.
detail yet.
Okay. So if you're getting ready for a check ride, I understand this POH is 378 pages. It's a whole lot more than some other aircraft, right? It's a pretty big POH. You got to read it. You got to read the whole thing. You have to understand your aircraft because if it's outside of its normal range, yeah, you've got a fancy. Does this thing have fancy avionics? Sometimes Diamonds put fancy avionics in their stuff.
Yeah, it's got a G500.
Yeah, so you've got some pretty nice avionics, so it'll yell at you if something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
But let's say I'm not a private pilot check ride isn't verifying that you can fly your school's aircraft, right? It's really verifying that like you're gonna pass a check ride and you have the ability and resources to dig through a POH and understand how to ask for maintenance on your airplane.
Right.
Right. So if you went to the mechanic and was like, hey, I think my battery's dead. You'd be like, all right, what battery do we need to order? We need a 12-volt battery. Engine's it's a little different than some of the other aircraft, but can you describe this engine to me?
Yeah. So I use the acronym CHAND.
Okay.
C hand. It's a Continental IO 240, 125 horsepower, 125 horsepower at sea level, horizontally opposed, air cooled, naturally aspirated, direct drive to the propeller.
Okay.
And
Awesome. Awesome. Only thing I would kind of leave out is like the acronym that you use. Acronyms are great. I love them. They're mnemonics, and they help you like learn and retain information. DVs, at least from what I've seen, they get a little annoyed with acronyms because a lot of study guides use acronyms. Your POH doesn't.
right.
Right. So the DPs are like, oh, so he obviously got this from a study guide. Let's dig deeper. What kind of propeller is it? And they start asking more and more and more questions that aren't in your acronym.
Yeah.
Right.